Bootcamp webinar series. We're so excited to have you here today. The topic for today will be pricing strategy, and it will be facilitated by Peg Richmond. I would also like to introduce myself and our team. My name is Rocio, and I will be the monitor for this webinar. We also have our translator, Sarie, and our technical support person, Sachet. During this webinar, you will be able to ask questions. To do that, you can ask it through the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen or through the chat button. Another thing you will be able to do is raise your hand through Zoom to answer any questions that Peg gives out after the polls and whenever she asks interactive questions. This webinar is provided under a grant from the Texas Workforce Commission, Workforce Solutions Rural Capital Area, and the Service Learning Excellence Program at Texas State University. Peg, thank you so much for being a part of this series, and I will now hand this over to you.
All right, thank you very much. So welcome everybody. I see we already have one hello in the chat, which is very nice to see. So today we're going to talk about pricing. This is always one of my favorite conversations with entrepreneurs. And so to go ahead and get us started, I'm going to ask you guys some questions just to anchor our thinking about pricing. So when I ask the question, there's going to be a poll that pops up, and if you can just respond on your device to the poll, we'll kind of take the temperature of what people think about the questions that I'm asking. So the first question is, a business's pricing strategy should allow it to maintain an operational budget, buy supplies, generate profits to reinvest in the business, or all of the above. So go ahead and click your answer and submit it, and we'll see what we get back for results. I do want to warn you guys that since we're all in COVID land and I am speaking to you from my home, there is a cat wandering around here, and if he starts talking, just ignore him. He's very vocal. But if I jump up, it's because he bit me. So just fair warning. All right, looks like most of us said all of the above, which is the correct answer. Looks like 80% of us think that those are the right reasons why you would have the right pricing strategy in place. That's what your aims are. So the second question I want to pose is, price can have a significant impact on a buyer's perception of a brand and a buyer's ultimate purchase decision. Is that true or false? Okay, and I also wanted to tell you too, we are having a little bit of delay in Zoom. So if we pause, it seems like we're paused, we're probably just waiting for answers to come in. All right, you guys can see from the results, most of us said true, which is great because that is the right answer. Now the actual effect, is hard to measure, and it can vary across products and across purchase situations. There are a lot of other factors that come into play when a decision is being made. All right, third question. Discounting a product is always the best method to induce customer purchase. Is that true or false? Wow, 100% false. That is correct. Discounting can be perceived to be favorable with the resulting increase in a likelihood to purchase, but discounting is also not a viable method for all products. There are other ways we can convey a low risk, high reward kind of a proposition. So the last question I'm going to pose is, only 50% of all consumer product good purchases are, the decisions are made at the shelf. Is that true or false? Okay, looks like we have sort of a split decision here. About a third of the audience thinks that's true and about 2/3 think that's false. It is false. Researchers have estimated that purchase decisions, the final purchase decision, actually 70 to 90% of the time is made right there in front of the product. Whether you had an intention of purchasing one brand or another, the ultimate decision happens right there at the moment of purchase. And that's going to be important for a future reason that we'll talk about. So moving into the presentation, I do want to remind you that most of the materials in here are copyrighted, and so we would ask that you don't share them once you get the materials after the webinar, that we don't, you don't share them outside of your own personal use, okay? So if we can move into the pricing section. I want to start off with this concept of the 4 Ps of marketing. And I am betting that most people on this webinar know these. The product is the actual good or service that you're offering. And it's how you've uniquely configured the features. It's got its own life cycle, and those things dictate pricing, place, and promotion. So place is really how you're delivering to the market. Are you going direct to the consumer, or are you going into a retail supply chain? This is very important because your goal as the producer is to be in front of the consumer at the moment they're making the decision. And if you've got the place wrong, you won't be there when they're making that decision, which we talked about as being made right there in front of the shelf at the time of purchase. Promotion is typically those things you think about in terms of advertising, public relations, other promotional activities to produce sales, and that does include price changes. Usually there's some kind of a mix of consumer education and brand promotion that goes on, especially if you have a new product or a new category where people may not be familiar with your product as a solution. The last thing we're going to talk about is price. It's one of your strongest signals about the value that you're bringing to the market. And price can be a lever, it's a very strong lever to lift sales or to expand into new markets or to push and accelerate your market entry. But it's also, you know, people are guilty of overusing it in the extreme, so that if you are discounting all the time, you're actually devaluing your brand. But on the other side of that, it's the most overlooked lever to produce revenue for a business. Most entrepreneurs that I have dealt with, they don't price their products high enough, and then they're afraid to raise the price. They don't really understand their product and the value they bring into the market. Most of the time, we want you to raise your price to the value you're bringing, and typically you're not going to lose sales, but it's not a set it and forget it kind of a process. You're going to optimize, you're going to tweak along the way. So if we summarize and think about the golden rules of pricing, there's 3 really, and they're listed on the next slide. Here we go. Whatever your pricing scheme is, it needs to be simple. I don't want a laundry list of confusing options, because then I get overwhelmed and that may cause me to not make a decision. Simple, clear, related to the value that you're delivering. When we talk about the value you're delivering, it's not the value you think you're delivering. If we go to the next slide, you'll see that the emphasis really needs to be, what is the value that the customer perceives? That is what you're pricing on. We ask entrepreneurs to make sure that when they validate their products before they enter the market, or even after they've entered the market, that they don't decide on this value and this pricing level themselves, or even what the brand represents. That is for the market to tell you. So you have to ask them. And you have to know your competition, including what are workarounds for your solution that people may use instead of buying your product or a competitor. So on the next slide, what we have is kind of some ways to basically price. You're going to price usually in one of these three ways, either per the unit that you're selling, a software package, a box of Kleenex, a thing, or per user. If I'm selling you software, I may have tiers based on the number of corporate users. I may sell it to you per academic year. You may, trying to think of some other ones. That's the one we commonly think of as per user seat, who's using the software at any given time. The last is per usage. These are transactional measures. I'm using this volume of storage. I am transacting X number of sales in a minute. I must pick in a warehouse and put into a box, so a fulfillment house will be charging you per unit they put into the box. I'm trying to think if there's some other ones, but those are pretty much the big ones. Okay, so that's generally pricing, just some common sort of caveats, if you will. Let's look next at pricing strategies. So I'm going to look at 4 of them, and they're on the next slide. So what we're looking at here are kind of the common ones. Demand pricing is the one you guys really see the most often. It's the one we would like you to think of first. And it really is based on that value that the customer perceives they are receiving. It does, demand pricing influences price and location. If you're having a prestige product, you're not going to try and get into Aldi's. If someone is sensitive to the price, they are not going to buy it if the price goes up. So it fluctuates, okay? And it is based on demand at the current moment. So recently, the price of gas has gone way down because a lot of people were not driving. But the price of new drugs that are not commonly available is usually fairly high, and people will pay them to get them, pay big prices to get them. So the second way most people, a lot of people, shouldn't say most, a lot of people will price their product is cost plus. They're trying just to make sure that they are covering their cost and putting a decent margin on top of it. So it's a markup strategy to make sure you've covered your expenses and you have enough money to invest in cash flow the business. Third one is competitive or strategic pricing. If you're entering into a market where there's a lot of customers, a lot of competition, sorry, then you're gonna wanna make sure that you are somewhere in the realm of the current pricing structure. And market share, this is when people are entering a market or trying to increase their market share significantly, they're going to enact this kind of a strategy. So let's talk a little bit then about the price demand curves, because I did say demand is where we'd like you to go. If we would like you to go there, you really need to know whether your price is elastic or not elastic, inelastic or elastic. And this means your consumers are price sensitive or price insensitive. If they're price sensitive, they're not going to purchase a brand if the price changes just a little bit. They'll start backing off pretty quickly. If they're price insensitive, they're going to buy it no matter what the cost. So I'm pretty insensitive to the price of gas. I have to have gas. It could be $1 a gallon. It could be $5 a gallon. I'm going to buy it. But if your customers are price sensitive, your pricing is inelastic. Demand goes up, you can't really raise your prices that much or you begin to lose sales. And then if your consumers are price insensitive, your pricing is very elastic and it goes up as demand goes up. You can charge higher and higher prices and you really aren't going to see the unit sales be affected. So that's kind of what we're looking at, that dynamic of what happens when your price changes. So let's go back to the strategies and just drill down a little bit into the demand pricing strategies. Okay? So there are 4 I'm going to talk about here, and these are all part of demand pricing, but they're a little bit different because they're entering the market with a different kind of a product going for different kind of consumers. So skimming, price skimming, or skimming the cream as it is known, that's used when you have a product or an offer with a very strong competitive advantage or a perceived luxury element. It is priced according to what the market will bear to give you maximum profits. So sometimes, you know, people will enter the market thinking they're going to be a premium product, but knowing that mainstream eventually will come and there will be more competition and they'll have to lower the prices. But you will see luxury products at all levels of goods and services, from luxury airfare and travel and services all the way down to Starbucks is considered a luxury product in the category. Okay, the second one there is economy or discount pricing. These are actually 2 different pricing that use pricing strategies that use low cost. The economy is a long-term strategy, and it is based on when you have parity goods or commodity goods or any good really, but your audience is very price sensitive. So think of this as Walmart's everyday low pricing. The people who are shopping at Walmart are probably on a pretty tight budget, or they're very price sensitive. And if things fluctuate a couple of pennies, they're not going to buy it. Discount is different in that it is short-term, used to lift sales, and it's just, you know, reduced price for limited time. Those can be seasonal discounts, loyalty rewards, buy one, get one, that kind of thing. All right, so the last 2 here, bundling, I'm just gonna kind of go around the circle. Bundling is when you put 2 products together for one single price. A lot of times there's 2 different ways you can do this. You can buy them separately, but for a limited time, we've packaged them together. You'll see this at holiday sales where they'll take 2 items, put it into a gift box, and it's a bundle. There are other times when you cannot separate them out and they're not sold separately. So some of the ways this used to be done before the phone market deregulated, you had to buy a whole bunch of services, and then they deregulated and you had options. But you still see this where it's like Time Warner Cable will give you the internet and then this and this, and they can be sold separately, but they really push a package, and it's hard for you to unbundle them because they won't give you the price of them separately. The reason service companies like bundling is because if you are a customer and have 2 services, if you're subscribed to 2 services, it is about 2/3 more difficult to switch providers. If you have 3 services, you're about 95% less likely to switch because the pain of switching is just very, very high. The last category here is price discrimination. This is when you actually set a price for a different part of the customer segment, but it has to be a verifiable before purchase separation, like a demographic, age. Age is the one that really comes to mind. It can also come on timing as well. So off season, peak prices at airlines, they change the pricing all the time. But think of a matinee or a student price at the movie. That's a legitimate use of price discrimination. All right, so most people start with one primary strategy, and then they'll kind of put that on the market and they'll sort of modify that over time. The next slide really talks about the blended strategies, where you really have kind of a base, but you will tweak it. You may have demand pricing and then a variation, or you may use several different strategies depending on what time of year it is. All right, let's go to the next slide because I want you to see this. I found this chart where all of these pricing strategies are listed down the left side. And this gives you sort of a thumbnail view of what is happening, what these are intended to do, when it might be appropriate to use them, and what you might expect as an outcome. So let's just take the price skimming initially. You start with a high price, competitors enter the market, and so that really drives the price down. You have to have a unique feature, you have to have a luxury element, you have to be better than, markedly better than usually. And that's more likely when you're an early stage product or when you really, that's been your entire marketing strategy. We're going to be the premium product in this category, such as Mercedes-Benz. And what you can expect then are high margin initially, and then kind of more in line with sort of normal industry categories as you get more competition. So you'll have this in the slides. It's just sort of a quick referral for you, but I thought it was interesting and I would like you to have that. And if you want to read more about it, you can see Blakely Gray in the right-hand corner. Those are the authors, and it was published in 2017. So on the next slide, what we're looking at is kind of how you might see products as they are arranged in a market based on their price and on their value, how these compare to each other. So you can see on the left side, as the price is lower and the value is lower, you have more of a bargain offer. And then in the middle, you've got more your mainstream offer because it's sort of middle of the road on both price and value. And on the high end, you've got the premium offers. These are your very, very advanced featured products or high customer service, whatever it is that makes people want to be there. And people pay those prices, high prices for those. So you can see that company B has a offer in the bargain, but they also have an offer in the mainstream. And that's a very common strategy to have to cross boundaries so that your consumers have options. You can see also company H, their value is more to the left side of the chart, but their price is relatively high. So what the consumer is getting is not maybe as good as some of the other mainstream products, but they're paying for it. Sometimes you will have a brand name that warrants that and the quality of the product has gone over time, but more than likely it's probably an overpriced product. And then company J is on the other end where they're giving good value, but they're not charging enough. So they're leaving money on the table, but they may be doing it with a purpose. This is typical of where we would see somebody coming in and trying to establish a foothold in the market, or maybe more moving into an adjacent market and just trying to accelerate through that very quickly. All right, so the next slide, this just really emphasizes that as you are in business, you may move from a bargain position to a mainstream business up to a premium position. A lot of car dealers, foreign car dealers, or producers, I should say, when they move into the US market, we've seen this with a number of brands. Typically, they'll come in with their very base economy model. So in the, I want to say early 80s, Honda, might have been 70s, but the Honda company came in with their Civic. And it was a very small, no frills, kind of a four-person car, and four-person is a stretch. But as they gained foothold, because they became very popular, they were fuel efficient, low entry price, they still ran well. They were very solid little cars. Then they started bringing in more of their higher scale or they're more featured models. And same with Toyota, and now Toyota's really a high end of mainstream. Okay, so next slide really is just talking about if you're going to incorporate the concept of elasticity into your pricing, you are going to want to really have an idea of what might happen when you put changes. So if we raise the price, if we give a discount, what will happen to the unit sales? You don't want to just have the preconception or a forecast. You really want to measure the results, because if you are anticipating that sales units go down but they really go up, that tells you you weren't priced right in the beginning. Or if people flock to you all of a sudden, oh, maybe you were overpriced, or maybe your feature set wasn't justified at the previous price. And you do this back and forth, tweak, test, reconsider, until you optimize that product. But again, once you get it optimized, the next quarter, you may have new competition. You may have somebody who's created a broader feature set. And so your pricing is now out of whack. It, again, not a set it and forget it kind of an operation. Okay, so you guys have been listening to me talk for a little while. I'm going to give you an activity here. Just a quickie, it's just a question and answer, but let's bring you back in. So in the participants list, or are we doing this in Q&A? Or CO?
We could do this Q&A or chat style. They can put in their answers and I will be able to read them out to you.
Okay, let's have them do it in the Q&A. So in the Q&A section, we would like somebody who understands what a freemium is to type their answer in, and then Rocio will read those out to us. And I'm going to give you a second to do that because, as I said before, we were having a little bit of a lag getting answers to come back to us. And oh, there he is. Told you the cat was here.
Okay, so we have an answer from two participants. So the first one, it's a free product or service to get you wanting to get more that you will pay for. And then the other one is high value product at high cost for consumer.
Okay, so this is a common strategy used with new software or software as a service, so pretty heavy in tech. And it is one of those where we are offering you kind of a scaled back product to get you to try what we're offering, get you familiar with the product to make you want more, and move you up to the paying model. So like I said, it's common with software, and there are also some other strategies such as licensing your technology. We're not going to cover that in this seminar, but I believe you all should have access to the Founders Academy videos from Shockwave Innovations. And there is a module there that talks about licensing your technology specific to the pricing and the positioning of that. So I would encourage you to go look at that. But yes, one last thing about the freemiums and the free trial offerings. They're not just pricing strategies, they are the customer acquisition tools that help some businesses bring on new customers. I know y'all have talked about that in the previous webinar. There are two sort of purchase decision models. One is where it's a more rational decision, and there's a thinking process where you become aware of the product, aware of your need, and you develop an interest and then a preference for a solution and then actually buy it. The other is try it like it, buy it, very visceral. And we see that a lot in food, and that's where all those food demos at Costco or HEB really help people decide they want to buy one of those packages and take it home. All right, so moving on from the strategies, let's talk about quickly the model of how you do this. And I'm not going to go into depth, but I just want to stress that when you are looking at the pricing model, you start with knowing your marketing objectives. Every price that you send out into the market, again, it's a strong signal. So you want it aligned with what you're trying to do. I said before, if you are trying to put a high-end product into the marketplace, you would not be looking at Walmart. You would not be looking at Marshalls or Aldi as a place. You would also not be looking at everyday low pricing or a parity. You're going to be looking at kind of a premium product price. The other thing you need to know is your customers, and small and medium businesses, they're consumers like anybody else, and they make decisions following their own behavior like everybody else. And you'll see that in the next slide. I'm really wanting you to know what your customers value, what they're willing to pay. What do they use now as a substitute if you're a first market entry? What needs do they have that nobody is fulfilling or not fulfilling well? Again, I'm going to say it, what do they value? Those pieces of information really inform the pricing model. There's, like I said, a unique constellation of features and benefits that you're offering, and I have to perceive you as being better than something I'm using now to switch. Okay, so on the next slide, this is really to emphasize you know your competition, you know your place in the landscape, not just with the package of cereal next to your package of cereal, but also what are the other breakfast category options? Because I could have sausage or biscuits, I could have waffles, I could eat candy, I could have McDonald's. There are a lot of options for cereal. And so you need to know really what's driving these people and where you fit. Your features and benefits versus your competition's features and benefits. Are you in a position of strength or weakness, and not just on the product claims, but in your finances, in your operating methodologies, your brand strength? Do you have specialty claims? A specialty claim can raise your price by about 35%. Are you unique in the marketplace? That brings a premium. Are there behind the scenes consolidations between companies or alliances between companies? They're going to impact your ability to get into the market or stay in the market or to be competitive. I have a client who has a unique technology where they have a cleaning solution that's all natural and it is very effective, but they couldn't get spray bottles because Clorox came in and basically wiped up all the supply chain. So that impacts how you go to market and what you're able to do. It's in the logistics. Do you have strong logistics? Because in that case, there was a bigger brand who commanded the supply chain, and because they're bringing more business, those people aligned with the big brand and didn't supply to the small company. So one last thought here. If your price is very much higher or very much lower than what consumers perceive as an equivalent product, it's going to be a red flag for them. And they're going to think twice about buying what you're doing. And then the last part of this, you really need to do some math. Sorry. Has to happen in a business. You're going to want to analyze your profit. You need to know how much you would be bringing as a margin. You need to set the initial structure and then moderate it over time, monitor it, make sure it stays in line with what's happening in the market. Change the prices as needed, okay? If you're going to give discounts, you need to factor in those discounts. If you're in an industry that requires you to pay costs to be part of a dealership or to be on a shelf somewhere, you're going to need to know that. All right, so let's move from the pricing model, to psychological pricing. So because we're in the era of COVID, most people have had to move online, or they're trying to figure out how to open their retail operation again. And that's really where the psychological pricing can help, online or at the shelf. So most of us have probably seen $19.99 versus $20 pricing, $1.99 versus $2 pricing. That's known as charm pricing, when you reduce the price insignificantly, but it changes the leading digit down one place. The reason that works is because psychologically, we perceive that as being much lower. Instead of $20, we anchor on $10. So that's kind of where I want to start, but knowing whether or not to publicly display your price is probably more important than anything. So if you are online and you have a business model that really is consumer focused and it's transactional and it's a light touch, I basically can get your product through the web without ever talking to you, without jumping through a lot of hoops, and it's not a big price point. Display your pricing. If you're more of a customized configuration with lots of bells and whistles and there's a lot of interaction between what's happening, don't display your prices. So I'm going through some repairs on my home right now. Yeah, none of those materials are listed because it all depends on the unique configuration of my house and the work that's going to be done. So that's a very, very interactive, heavy touch model. And then of course, there's this entire spectrum of whether you're very transactional or whether you're very custom, and somewhere along the way. But that's the general rule of thumb. So if you do decide to display your pricing publicly, the way you do it matters, as I say on the next slide, especially if you have multiple priced packages. Let's take a look at an offer that might be out on somebody's website. There's 3 or 4 prices, and that's common. And in this one, you'll see that the left side is the freemium model. The first package is $19 and the third package is $39 a month. There's a couple things going on with the pricing here that are important. The prices are going from low on the left to higher on the right. People expect lower numbers on the left because that's the way we've kind of been taught, you know, numbers, rulers, that sort of thing. You'll see the left digit on package 2 and package 3 is lowered by the $1, that charm pricing. And that is perceived significantly less than the $20 or the $40. One other thing I do want to mention about round pricing like this $19, $39, typically these are more effective with emotional purchases, so there's no trailing digits. If you're going to do custom pricing, and let's say you're responding to a request for a proposal, or it's a very exact offer, using exact numbers works better. So instead of $200, it might be $187.23. Okay, and if that's a rational purchase decision as opposed to that try it, like it, buy it, that is going to have a better impact. Okay, so the other thing you want to think about in this pricing is too many features and benefits that are listed. It just gets too complicated. So you want to keep this pretty clean and make it very compelling but easy for me to compare and decide. One of the ways that helps people decide is by putting a name on your product. And so you can see in this configuration that we have the starter package, on the next slide, the professional edition and the small business edition. So this helps me know if I'm just kind of getting started in business, I'm maybe the starter. If I'm somebody who has, let's say I'm an attorney and I have a professional practice, but it's just me and a partner, we may get the professional edition. If I have 10 employees and 5 of them are going to use my accounting software, I'm going to probably get the small business edition. So it helps people kind of figure out where they fit in your product offers. And on the next slide, you'll see that sometimes there is an offer where the price isn't shown. And in this case, it's those same 3 products, but with an enterprise edition. So this is for a much larger customer. And again, this moves you into the heavy touch pricing arena. So you would want to not put a package price on that. All right. And let's say that I really want you to buy the small business edition because that's where I do the least amount of work. You buy it online. I don't have to do much support. I give you a written user guide. I have a customer service rep, but let's face it, they're not paid like my professional sales reps. But that's where I make the most profit. On the enterprise edition, it's very custom, so I don't want to direct people there. I want to direct people to the least amount of work for me and the highest price. So that's what's highlighted here. Okay. So there should be a next slide. Okay. So anchor pricing is one of those things that kind of works whether you are putting a larger regular price or any high number next to your price. You see 2,387 happy customers, and you register that, but what you're really doing is comparing $49 doesn't look so expensive next to 2,387. So that helps people make a decision. So on the next slide, I'm going to pose a question for you. Which of these pricing schemes do you think is better? Go ahead and give me an answer. Let's see what we all think. Give you all a break from my voice too. Okay, looks like we had pretty much the 80-20 split, but actually the 70 for $29 it works better in terms of inducing somebody to buy. Oh, we get a comment that says it feels like the same. Well, let me explain to you why it's not. You're using anchor pricing here for the 70, okay? But the lower price comes after the items. So you've really said, ooh, lots of items. Oh, low price. Or you say, $29, 70 items. Well, that doesn't seem as good of a deal anymore. There are some caveats here though. It has to be a difficult calculation. If I said 10 items for $100, you know each item is $10, and you're going to look at that and go, is that item worth $10? So 29 divided by 70 is a lot harder to calculate right there in your head. Some people will do it. They're math geniuses. I am not one of those people. Or they might whip out their phone and use the calculator. But ordinarily, you've kind of already made the perceptive decision without doing the math. So the other caveat on this is that the number of items has to be bigger than that price. And again, this is about anchoring. It also kind of works this way when we go for putting the picture of the product next to the price on the next slide. You'll see if you put the product first, people anchor on, do I like the product? If you put the price first, they anchor on the price, and then they do an evaluation of whether the product is worth that price. You don't really get a chance to influence them otherwise. So this is very important if you have a luxury good or a utilitarian good. If you have a luxury good, put the product first and then put the price. If you have a utilitarian product, that's hard to say on a Saturday afternoon, put the price first, because you want to anchor them on, oh, it's $1 for this cleaning supply. Okay, this also works when we sort prices, like on a menu board or on a menu that somebody would hand you, or even if you are listing prices on your website in a particular order. So on the next slide, you'll see a couple of different a comparison. This is from an actual study that was done in 2012, where in an 8-week period in a bar, they listed the prices low to high or high to low. And what they found was when they listed the prices high to low, the actual average sale was just over $6 as opposed to being under $6 when the prices were listed low to high. So if you go to the next slide, this will kind of explain it. When things are listed low to high, you're anchored on that price. When you're listed high to low, people start perceiving that as quality. So when I scan down and it's getting $10 as opposed to $4, and $4 is my anchor price, now my concern is I'm paying $10 more. I don't really know if that's worth it. But when I have a $10 beer listed first, and then I go down to a $4 beer, I'm like, oh, $10? That $4 beer must be really bad. So it's kind of a loss aversion. So they're trying not to lose quality or lose money. Lose money on the left side, lose quality on the right side. And you can see on the next slide that that's sort of what's happening there. Okay. All right. So if you go to the next slide, you can also see that if you're online and you're able to separate, actually anywhere, but online, because it's about shipping, if you're able to partition out the pricing, the shipping, and the handling, it's a perceptual shift from my product is now almost $20 to kind of $15, and I'm anchored on more toward the $10 range. But it looks better, can lead to higher revenue. You can also offer payment installations. On the next slide, we have a $500 price versus 5 payments of $99. It eases the pain of paying because, yes, people can do the math, and 5 at 99 is $4.95, so I get a little bit of a discount there, but it's just this perception of I'm looking at almost $500 there as opposed to less than 100. And so again, you're easing the pain. Okay, one other thing we want to look at is how does pricing in an ad work? So we're going to ask you another question. Of these 4 ads, which of the ads do y'all think performed better? We should have a poll for this, right?
Yes, it should be coming up in a bit.
Okay, there we go. That internet delay. Oh, interesting. Okay, so we got 80% said C, and 20% said, looks like A. I lost my poll. But the majority of us said C. Oh, very good. Okay. That is correct. And it's interesting why it's correct. You would think that the top 2, they are economically a better deal because they have unlimited toppings. But what's happening in a consumer's head is there's familiarity with the bottom 2. it looks like a better deal simply because there are multiples of the price. So you can see if we go to the next slide, you can see 3 times 8 equals 24, and 4 times 6 equals 24. And that is the processing that's happening in your brain. There are number facts that we've stored as children. We all know our multiplication tables. We all know our addition and subtraction. And what's happening is the price just kind of feels right, where it doesn't feel right on the top 2, because even though it's unlimited, you don't quite know what you're getting. So you can use this insight with your own products when you price them. So let's say you have a price of $15. You can use, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Okay, let's say you are offering a service and you have 30-minute sessions with people. You can offer a package price of 4 weekly meetings for 30 minutes each at a cost of $120. That feels right to people. Okay. So the last thing I'm going to talk about as a kind of a psychological trick here is this bundling thing that happens. Remember I told you you can put 2 things together and sell them at one price? Well, that does work. And the reason it works is because people can't really specify a particular price for either one of the products. But what happens though is there's a caveat here. If you put an inexpensive price with a product with a more expensive product, the inexpensive product cheapens in the consumer's mind the more expensive product. So while these 2 products together would cost $279, consumers looked at this and said, that's a package deal worth $165. And so they really, really devalued the larger product. And you also kind of need to think about, this works better with hedonistic products or things that are giving you, you know, a lifestyle that you want as opposed to a necessary or utilitarian product. And it also goes with the way you describe it. So if you're selling a blender, for instance, you know, you want to talk about making cocktails, not about making protein smoothies for breakfast. That's not as much fun. Okay. You also, again, don't put an expensive product with an inexpensive product. So let's go to the next slide and kind of see how we can apply what we've learned today. According to everything I shared with you, is this a good display of pricing or not? And what I'd like you to do is type your answers into the Q&A. And Rocio will read this out to us. And say yes, reason, no reason. So we know whether you're saying that's a good thing or a bad thing.
All right, so we'll just give people a chance to type in their answers, and then once they're submitted, I'll go ahead and read them out to you, Peg.
Awesome.
All right, so one of the answers that we have received is yes. The picture is on the left, and it shows a discount by crossing off the price.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So this is a luxury product. It's a Ray-Ban. It's a higher end sunglass. And so the product is displayed first. The consumer is basing the decision on whether they like the product, not just the price point. And they are displaying the old price, which anchors the new price. Well done. And anything else?
No, we have not received any other comments so far.
Okay. Well, one other thing I saw about this was...
Oh, there is a chat response. Let me go ahead and read it out real quick. So a participant said, discount price is a good strategy. At the left bottom of the screen shows a 25% discount.
Yes, that promo there is very good. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting how those things pop up. So The other thing that's happening here is that there is an option to pay in installments, right? Under the price, it looks like you can make 4 payments of $26, $24.60. I can't read it. It's very small on my screen. But all those things are working toward kind of compelling the consumer to say, that's a good deal. All right, let's go to the next one and take a look at it. Same question, based on everything that we learned today. Is this a good way to display pricing? And again, why or why not?
All right, we'll just give participants a few more moments to just type in their answers, and then I'll go ahead and read them out to you.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a comment from a participant, and it says prices are going down, which is bad.
Yes, and I am assuming that means that the prices are going down from left to right, which is correct. It goes
Yes.
to the way we normally think of numbers going from smaller on the left to higher on the right.
Yes. Another point from another participant is that the number of customers seems unreasonable.
I agree. They're very even, aren't they? It's like, oh, they're multiples of each other almost. Yeah, I think that's there simply as an anchor technique. And I don't think that's real. So you have to be careful about that. Consumers are not, gonna just take this without maybe wondering about that. So I am glad you looked at that. I think what they're trying to do is anchor the price next to that larger number. So $5,249 compared to that looks like a good price. $79 a month compared to $1,000 looks like a good price. So I believe that is why those numbers are there. But again, I think they're fictitious, just like you guys do.
Mm-hmm. Another point made by a participant is that they also do not show the favorable price.
You mean in the, I'm not quite sure I understand that. Do you mean there's no lower anchor price?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. So these are just regular prices. They're not on sale. That's why they're not anchored with a higher price. This is the regular everyday pricing. That's why they've used a larger number in the customer. Again, remember, you can anchor with any large number. You could put your address next to it. 10,500 Research Boulevard, and it makes $149 under the professional category, really small. Okay. So anything else coming through from anybody?
Another comment is benefits are the same in the first 3 packages, and the only exception is phone support at the business level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that looks a little different. Can't really tell what the difference is between the professional and the startup, right? So some other things I have noticed is the inclusion of those paying customers, that number there, that's almost like a mini endorsement, because if people are paying for your product, you are going to assume they're satisfied customers. And in regards to the features and the benefits, it's pretty simple. They're not overwhelming you with a lot of factors that could influence your decision. They have named the product so you can kind of find yourself in the array. And they are offering a 60-day money-back guarantee. So those are the things I saw. Did anybody else see anything additional?
We have not received comments on that.
Okay, you'll let me know if they come through. So let's move on to the next one because it's kind of similar to this. And what I would like to know is, how is it different from the one before? And how is it similar to the one before? Oh, okay. Oh, I did notice on the Ray-Ban, there's a comment that says somebody offered free shipping. So that increases the value.
Okay, we have a comment from a participant, and for this slide, or for this example, it says, this one shows the preferred plan. Prices go up from left to right.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Anything else?
Not at the moment.
Okay. So you'll notice on here next to their pricing, there are no anchor numbers. The only anchor number is 60 days, but it's so small that it really doesn't act as an anchor number. So they missed that opportunity. But a couple of things they did right, just like in the previous example, they do name the products. You know which one they want you to buy, as our participant pointed out. And they do have the call for the pricing at the highest level. And you'll also know they've made that a different color. So it, in its own way, is called out, even though it's the same size. And it's red, so that's kind of a caution. It's almost like a stop and go back to scale, because that's where we want you. All right, so on the next slide, I have a pyramid. And remember I said there's luxury products at all types and all categories of services and products. Here we have a bunch of them. You've got Van Cleef and Arpels, diamonds. You have all the way down to things like Starbucks, Swatch. So there's everyday luxury, all the way up to really super premium. You know, put your, is there a G6 out now from Lear? Put your G6 in that category. Your black Amex. We have a poll for you. What's the best pricing strategy for these types of products? Oh, have a split decision. Okay. So we have mostly premium or all of the above. And we have one person who has said, looks like one person, it's 20% of y'all said bundling. So yeah, that's interesting. Actually, all of those answers are correct because all of the strategies listed here can be used. You can use skimming as you enter the market or to stay above. You can use that premium pricing. You can bundle it as long as you bundle it with something else expensive. And then again, you are going to want to understand where your competition fits and make sure you stay in a premium price position. All right. So one last question here. And this is a crib and mattress set from Walmart. It is actually available on their website right now. Is this a good use of bundling? And I apologize if you can't see it, it's very small, but that's how big it came out. Oh, look, 100%, yes. Okay, so I'm going to tell you why it's not really a great bundle. Remember when I said you shouldn't partner a mattress, sorry, not a mattress, an inexpensive product with an expensive product? When you price these out, and in my mind, when I looked at this, I didn't know what that mattress was, but it looked cheap. And I thought, next to a piece of furniture, can't imagine it's that expensive. It's not on the same level. And it's true. I went then and looked at their website, and this particular mattress, the choice they're giving you is not between the lowest quality mattress from this manufacturer, but it is the choice of fabric that wraps it. So the mattress by itself, sold separately, is $36.49, and the crib by itself is $169. When you put those two together, that price is only $205.49. So it's good for the retailer, and this mattress is probably the mattress that they get the most margin on. Okay, it costs them nothing. They mark it up. They don't charge less for it, and they sell probably a lot of them with that particular crib. So it's great for the retailer, not so good for the consumer. They actually pay a little bit more for that. So I know I threw a lot of information at you. I've kind of taken you on a little journey here today, but I hope you're taking some information away. One of the things I want you to understand about the last part of this presentation is the psychological pricing. It's a real thing, and there is a gentleman, his name is Nick Kolenda, Kolenda, and he is somebody who takes academic research and drills it down into information that a business owner can use to put pricing together. And we've included it on our reference page. He is the next to the last, where it's Kolenda N, Psychological Pricing or Pricing Psychology. There's a link there to his website. He has information about marketing, he has information about sales, and he has information about pricing. And there was a lot more there that I didn't have time to share today, a lot more that you could sift through that would really help you. And I encourage you to go look that up and see if that's of any help to you. And with that, I believe I'm going to open it up for questions.
Yes. So we do have a few questions from participants. So I'll go ahead and do that. So one question asked is, if I ask someone how much they will pay for a product or service, won't they state a lower price?
So when we talk to entrepreneurs about market validation, there is a process that you go through, and the conversation needs to be that. It needs to be a conversation. The questions that you ask need to be very open-ended, and you don't start with the price question. So if I was going to introduce this pen to the marketplace, and you had never seen a pen before, I might come up with a concept sheet that showed an illustration and listed some benefits, and I would hand that to you and say, this is a product that we're considering introducing. It has these benefits. Does this solve a problem for you? How does it solve a problem? How big is that problem? Really get them to talk about the pain of their problem. If it doesn't solve a problem for you, who would it solve a problem for? Are there features that might enhance this product? Where would you expect to buy this product? Very end, you ask them, how much would you anticipate paying for a product like this? This is after they've talked about the pain of their need and the fact that they can't find a solution, or the solutions they have don't satisfy their need for some reason. And oh, that looks like a great product and the benefits might really solve my problem. The value in their head has gone up. And yet they still know what the cost of a pen is. And so you will get, a better estimation that way of value. And then we're also going to just say, you don't ask one person, you ask at least 100 people. And you keep asking until you get the same answer again and again and again and again and again, and you kind of have saturated that. And that's how you decide.
Okay. Another question asked is it better to start with a lower price and then increase once the demand increases?
If that is your particular market entry strategy, yes, but you need to have a clear plan of what your actual regular price is going to be. You should probably be advertising that in your introductory period, and it needs to be clear to the consumer that this is an introductory period, a limited time, you know, the first 5,000, and then we're going back to our regular price. Because if you set a price and that is perceived as the regular price, you'll never go up from there.
Okay. Another question is, what about a service such as Groupon? Do you think this is a good option for people to use?
No. Let me now. To be fair, I have not looked at Groupon in a long time. But when Groupon first came out, the structure of it is not beneficial to the entrepreneur. If you're very, very new and you're just trying to get some traffic in the door, you might feel like it's working for you. But what happens is typically the pricing structure is you're dictated by Groupon to offer a significant discount, and then the money you receive is split between you and Groupon. So a lot of people were ending up with 25% of their normal regular price, which didn't begin to cover their costs. So they were losing money. There were also some rules about you had to honor these for a lifetime, and so that was a problem too. But couponing in general is not a great strategy for developing brand loyalty, because the people who are using couponing and using it pretty religiously or diligently, they are bargain hunters, and there's not going to be brand loyalty between you and somebody else who offers the same thing. I'm going to go where I get a deal if I'm a Groupon customer. That's my opinion. I know other people have had good luck.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for that answer. Another question is, if I'm starting a life coaching consulting business, would I offer a premium?
So typically in professional services, especially where liability may attach, which you would have to investigate in your life coaching business, we don't see people giving away free services. They may give a free abbreviated consultation. So I've seen them, I'm betting everybody here has seen them, where an attorney might give you 15 minutes, 20-minute free consultation. What happens in those consultations is they don't really give you any specific legal advice, and they're very careful to say, this is not legal advice, do not construe it that way, I'm not your attorney. So it not a good use. The other thing is your time is what you're selling. That is perishable. Once you give it away, you can't get it back. We would prefer to see you do something more in the line of advocacy, where you might go speak, volunteer, meet lots of people, explain what you do, because they're going to come to you because they have a relationship with you, not because you give them a free consultation.
Okay. And then the last question that we have is a question in Spanish. So in English, the question translates to, does translating these marketing examples change the effectiveness? And then the question in Spanish is, ¿traducir estos ejemplos de marketing cambia la efectividad?
That's an excellent question. And in all honesty, I don't know. I do not speak Spanish. I am not sure what the translation would do to the psychology. I don't know if a Hispanic buyer has the same psychology as, you know, a non-native Spanish-speaking person. There. I would encourage you to go to the Calendo website and do a little investigation and see. The other place you might turn to is somebody who is an expert in marketing to the Hispanic market, because there are agencies who could do that. That might be a question that would start a really nice professional conversation between y'all.
Okay. La señora Richmond no está muy segura en cuáles son los cambios que ocurren cuando traducimos las cosas, pero un recurso que puedes usar para tratar de encontrar una respuesta a esa pregunta es visitando la página de web de Colenda. Ahí tienen mucha información de cómo puedes traducir tus cosas en español y cuál va a ser la mejor manera efectiva para poder alcanzar la gente a la que estás tratando de venderles tus productos. También puedes contactar diferentes agencias que especializan en cómo hacer marketing para sus productos para la comunidad latinoamericana o la comunidad hispana. Lo más es tú tratando de buscar las respuestas en las agencias y en diferentes grupos que ofrecen diferentes servicios para que tú puedas alcanzar el goal que quieres para poder vender tu producto muy bien. And yeah, all right. Well, that concludes our questions for today. I would like to thank everyone for attending our webinar. Thank you, Peg, so much for being a part of this webinar series, as I said before, and for just putting this presentation together. Also, thank you to Sarie and Sachet for helping put this webinar together as well. We will see you all at the next webinar on July 11th that will be talking about moving your business online. The Zoom link for that webinar will be on our WordPress website, where you will also have access to the other webinar recordings and the activities that we will also have on there. You will also have the Outlook invitation that we will be sending out so that you can also attend the other webinar that is coming up. In regard to this QR code, it's probably not showing up, or it is showing up. You can go ahead and scan it with your phone, and you will take the post survey if you want credit for it. If you cannot complete the survey right now, that is completely fine. You will also find it through the WordPress website that you guys have access to. Thank you again, Peg, so much. And thank you for your time, and I hope that everyone has a nice day.
Thank you, Rosia, and my pleasure. Thank you all for attending.
All right, and that concludes our webinar. Thank you.